Okay, guys. So now what we're going to discuss is two very important things. One is your release schedule, and the second thing is your episode length. So both of these things are extremely important, and let's knock them out of the park one by one. So first, let's talk about your release schedule. So from my perspective, I believe that there are a few factors that you need to take into consideration for both these points. So for the first point, which will also stand true for the second, is in terms of your release schedule, you need to think about who your audience is. So you need to go back to your ICP and just think about whom they are. Are they people that are going to be consuming your podcast on their way to work? Are they going to be consuming it on their way back from work? Are they going to be consuming it during the weekends? Are they going to be consuming it at night? Certain types of shows like horror shows do extremely well at night. Hobby shows do extremely well in the afternoon. And in accordance to that, I would essentially schedule and time my podcasts on the day before. I would schedule them to go out at a particular slot in which I believe that my ICP is going to be consuming my podcast. So that's one very important factor. You need to get into the minds of your ICP. So in our example, that was from the second perspective, you also need to think about how many times in a week you're going to be releasing your podcast, or how many times in a month you're going to be releasing your podcast. I can't stress on this enough. Don't be over ambitious. When you're getting started with a new project, you're filled with a lot of energy. You need to temper that energy and, just think about whether you'd be able to keep this pace up 3 months from now, 4 months from now, when particular engagements come up. So in this scenario, what I would actually advise folks to do is essentially sit between releasing 2 episodes per month. Don't release less than that, because habit formation won't necessarily take place. And don't try to start your podcast, if this is your first time creating a podcast, by creating more than 1 episode per week. So an ideal state is either once a week or twice a month, whatever fits your schedule best, and whatever you can continue to do as the weeks and the months progress. A really good hack to doing this, if your show is not time specific or it's not event specific, is to bank a few of your episodes. If you essentially have your episodes going out week after week, make sure that you always have a couple in the chamber ready to sort of have to launch in the forthcoming week. If a particular scenario happens where you're not able to record or you're not able to do something, let's say if hypothetically, to God not, but you fall unwell, or your co-host and you can't meet, or some scenario like that takes place, the one thing you don't want is essentially to break consistency. That is the most important thing for you to consider when it comes to the scheduling of your episodes. Much more than how often you're going to be scheduling your episodes, it's making sure that you're consistent with that particular timeline that you've set. This is essentially because the relationship that exists between the podcaster and the listener is a very emotional and a very deep relationship. And if they start to build a habit and an expectation around your show, you do not want to break that. You do not want to disappoint them. So make sure you choose a schedule that works specifically for you, and then you stick to that schedule, come what may. So that is the part on essentially your episode scheduling and the frequency of your episode. Now, how long should your episode be? Once again, I believe that there are 2 factors to take into consideration here. The first factor is, whom are you speaking to? So look at your ICP or MVS, and according to your ICP or MVS, you will essentially understand when they're going to be listening to your podcast episode. And in accordance to that, you will also be able to gauge to a certain degree of the time that they have at their disposal. So on average, people travel for between half an hour to 1 hour per day. So you can essentially work around that particular time period if you're trying to target and hit commuters. If you're trying to target and hit folks that are going for their evening job, you can essentially see statistics on how long the average jog is in the evening, or how long an early morning walk is. And in accordance to that, essentially you can think about the length of your particular episode. As a general rule of thumb, if you're interested and curious about what works in general, what we've seen at Hubhopper is shorter shows, and this is a trend that's taking place more and more as the months go by. Shorter shows tend to do better. So shows that sort of peak at about 20 minutes, between 15 to 20 minutes, that's your sweet spot. Anything that goes post your 20-minute period, we've started to actually see large drop-off rates. And one of the things that brands going forward are going to be looking at is your completion rate with regards to the show. So you don't want to create an episode that is too long. And this is especially the case if you're in newer markets for podcast consumption. So in emerging markets, people's attention spans they're starting to consume podcasts where their attention spans are already shorter. A lot of these countries haven't had talk radio as a habit that's been formed over decades. So as a consequence of that, people have picked up podcast consumption, expecting or desiring slightly shorter episodes. So if I were you and I didn't have a clear-cut understanding of how long my episode should be, I would go straight away for a 15 to 20 minute long episode. If you're creating a 45-minute long episode, I would break it up into two. That way you automatically have two episodes at your disposal, which will help you along the way to maintaining your frequency. So just to round this entire piece up, in terms of the length of your show, think about your ICP and your MVS. And if you don't have much knowledge around what the length should be, I would stick with a 15 to 20 minute episode. And when it comes to your episode frequency, I would stick with either twice a month or once a week. I would not increase more than that. It would not be sustainable. And I would not, create shows or episodes that are less than twice a month, because that would be too little for habit formation to kick in. And that's what we're looking to get when it comes to our listeners. So hope that helps, and see you in the next one. There's one small caveat with folks that are looking to create podcasts around particular, time-based events. So whether these are show reviews, or whether this is reviewing particular sports or matches, in this scenario, one needs to do is actually make sure that time decay isn't a major problem for you. You have to release shows rather promptly. So you need to be one of the first few folks that gets a show out, and be somebody who listeners can rely on. But that's just an edge case for the few folks of you that are creating either news-based podcasts or creating, match reviews or episode reviews for particular TV shows and movies. So thanks again, guys, and see you in the next one. Looking forward.